Welcome to the Tennis Warehouse racket review of the Wilson Pro Staff RF97 Autograph. As many of you know, Roger Federer is very dialed in with his spec of choice, so this is strictly a cosmetic update, and because of that, we're going to do things a little bit differently today. Joining us via video conference all the way from Switzerland, we have Roger Federer here, and we're also going to be checking in with the playtesters on the court. So let's start with Roger Federer and see what he has to say about his racket update.
Roger Federer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Nice to see you, Michelle.
First things first, tell us about this racket. Why do you love it so much? What's your favorite part of the racket? How has it been so successful for you? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, number one, I love talking about the racket because very rarely have I done interviews about the racket because usually people want to know about break points or how I played in the match, but it all wouldn't happen without the racket. And it's been it's been a journey that I've really enjoyed, starting with Pete Sampras and Stefan Edberg's racket, the Pro Staff 85, the iconic one that everybody knows about, and times were different then. There was a lot of serve and volleying going on, fast court tennis, if you like. And I started with that one too when I was 14 years old, and I'm still playing with the Pro Staff today. Today it's the RF97 autograph, which is wonderful for me, of course, to have sort of my own racket within the Wilson Tennis and the franchise. So that's a really nice thing for me. Now I've had some changes, as you probably know, going from the 85 to the 90 and then to the 97. So I think that also, shows perfectly how tennis has evolved, how maybe surfaces have slowed down, how players defend better, rallies get longer. And for that, I needed a little bit of a better racket head. But at the same time, I never wanted to give up, on my way of being able to control the ball, and not just go with pure power. But as I moved to the RF97 autograph, I think then I definitely also went for more of a power racket, but yet didn't compromise on the quality of shot and the feel for the balls.
Stay tuned for more of our chat with Roger Federer, but for now we're going to check out that video that we recorded a couple days ago, and Chris is going to start us off by talking about the heritage of the Pro Staff line.
Thanks, Michelle. Yes, I've got a couple of classic rackets. If you remember Ponytail Federer back in the day, he was using the Pro Staff 6085, and I have one of those here. And then he switched to the 90 series of rackets, Tour 90, and I've got one of the K-Factor versions of that racket here. And one of the things that I really like, the original Tour 90, when it came out and they changed from the 85 to the 90, was it had a much shorter section right here above the grip of the racket. So above that pallet, the shaft of the racket, the yoke extended much further down towards the handle, and I found that racket really tough to get around. It rotated very slowly. It wasn't a maneuverable racket, and when the K-Factor version came out, we saw more of the beam design that Fed was actually using. It really replicates that Pro Staff 85, and you see the extension of the shaft right here, which was missing on that original Tornado. And that's one of the things that is prevalent on the 97 today, is it's got that little extension there. They keep the yoke nice and small and compact, and I think that compact center was a technology that Wilson were talking about for a while. Definitely helps the racket rotate, and that's one of the things I find that keeps even that current 97 pretty maneuverable.
Wow, thanks, Chris. All right, so I'm the lucky guy that gets to hold the brand new one. Obviously, this doesn't look drastically different from the black satin finish. We've got a little bit of clear coat up here from the 11-1, and that allows you a good view at the internals of the braiding of the graphite. I really like this racket. And I just wanted to speak a little bit to the mystique of the players that have played with this racket, starting with Sampras. I admit that part of the allure of these rackets for me is just how well they played during their whole careers and how well they behaved on and off court. Just stellar players, stellar people. And getting these rackets in my hand, I feel like it's up to me to play really well with it. These rackets are very heavy. They give you all the plow through in the world. And basically, there are two different styles of swinging I found out. I've played with a lot of 300-gram frames, and now this is a 340-gram frame. I got to let this one do its business. Once you get it going, it's just got stellar plow through. But if you're coming from a kind of a lighter 300 gram frame, you've got to be a little more aware and cognizant to finish your shot. So this racket is just going to give you basically everything you need in terms of weight, stability, and put away power. And I found playing with this racket lately, I used to say it was hard for me to play with it for more than about 40 minutes. I've actually achieved a little more length of time and quality out of this. And I'm noticing that I can really redirect pace better than I can with most any other racket I've played with. So just all in all, a great frame. If you're expecting seamless, it's seamless.
Now I want to talk a little bit about when Roger switched to the 97 square inch head, and that's when I also believed that I could play with the same racket as Roger. Before that, Pro Staffs didn't interest me, but once this spec came out, this was the very first one with the 97 square inch head, that red and black cosmetic. It was actually probably my favorite cosmetic for a few years, and then we transitioned each couple years as Roger transitioned, and as you guys know, all those RF fans out there, he switched into that stealthy black matte paint, and it really looked amazing on the court. But I think personally it was a struggle for me to get completely into this racket, but seeing Roger gel with it so well, it was easy for me to make the transition too. I know back then there was a lot of questions about the differences in the different paint, and then when that tuxedo version came out, we really kind of felt maybe the white paint felt a little bit different than the black paint, and we noticed that Roger went back to that all black matte cosmetic. So with this new update, Roger had a lot of say in the cosmetic, and obviously he prefers that black matte. There's some really cool touches, some heritage callouts on this racket. It looks amazing. I have been hitting a bunch with it. It's definitely a reason why I am not gonna put the RF down and keep playing with it, because it reminds me what I love about this racket. As Mark just mentioned, tons of plow through, so much stability. It's just a racket that really demands you play the best version of your game. And for that reason, it's an amazing racket. This will be a seamless transition. Roger has played a big role in designing the RF97, so let's see what he has to say about that.
Maybe talk a little bit about how you've worked with Wilson in the past, and then with this update, and how you have an influence on the cosmetic. We've seen some really cool cosmetics come out, but this one is, I actually have it right next to me. I love it, but definitely very beautiful. It's a beautiful racket, and once you have it in your hands, you really see the details. So talk to me about the design and how you helped design it with Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, I think design is something I've always enjoyed, you know, regardless if it was for the clothes, but I think also for the rackets. And the rackets, you know, you don't change design all the time. I think tinkering with a racket is always very complicated. I think it's maybe most complicated besides shoes for a tennis player. And that's why, for me, the process is one that I really take very, very serious. You're not allowed to miss anything. Because at the end of the day, you got to trust your racket when you go, you know, deep into a match and you have these big important points. The last thing you want to think about is my racket going to be there for me. And if at least I'll lose, it's because of myself and not because of the racket. And that's why I'm very particular and giving, I hope, all the insights I possibly can to create and build the best sort of racket we can together with Wilson. Now with the cosmetics, I think I've changed some, you know, throughout the years, but obviously staying within the Pro Staff, there's sort of a certain color range we always stay true to. The yellow, the red, and the black has been, you know, the classic and iconic. But then in recent, you know, sort of in the last decade or so, and I look at the tennis wall and I look at all the pop colors and neons and all the crazy stuff that has come and happened, you know, I really thought, how about if we go back to basics? And I think the idea really came also from a friend of mine. When I was playing with one of the test rackets, remember in 2013, I believe it was, in Hamburg and in Gstaad, where I didn't play so well because I had huge back problems and all that. And it had to be a full-on black racket, you know, with nothing to it. And my friend said, this is so cool. People will love a black racket. And I was like thinking, well, I'm not sure about it. But then if we make a black racket extremely cool and special, I think that could then be really a difference to any other rackets out there. And when you look at the walls, you know, in the shops nowadays, I feel like there's so much color and so much craziness to it, and sometimes in a good way. I mean, a lot of people build some really great rackets, but I thought, how about we go back to basics, something very, very sleek, cool, long lasting. You will look back at this racket and go like, this is one racket I can take out in 30 years and it will still be something special today.
I'd like to touch on the string a little bit too. I've tried the racket with Wilson's Champion's Choice, which is that gut poly blend, and I've tried it both ways. I've tried it the Fed way with the gut and the mains, and I've tried it what would be more my preferred way with the poly, the Alu Power in the mains. And for me, really, the racket plays best with a full bed of poly. I like a little bit of a deader string bed, and that just a full bed of something like Alu Power or even 4G, something nice and stiff. Because this racket's got so much weight, it's got a fairly crisp, firm beam, so it's got a lot of inherent power in the racket. Once you get that mass moving, and also just the head size and the stiffness of the beam, it really gets the ball off the string bed very quickly, so it gets a good jump, good access to depth and pace. And for me, putting a full bed of poly in here, probably up a little bit higher too, around 55 pounds, which is pretty high for me, definitely deadens the response, enables me to control the ball. How about you guys?
I definitely like a full bed of poly, unless of course we're leaning towards a really hot court temperature where the temperature just kind of melts the full bed of poly. I concur with Chris all the way. It's a very powerful frame. It's firm, it's heavy, and with that kind of low powered monofilament, you can kind of tame how much inherent power this frame affords you.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I personally prefer polys as well. However, I recommend you guys give it a try. Try different setups and what works best for you. You heard our playtesters' favorite strings to use in the RF97, but let's see why Roger Federer chooses Champion's Choice as his string setup.
Could you talk us through your favorite string setup with this racket and maybe why you use those strings?
Yes, I mean, I've used the hybrid version of stringing ever since 2002, I remember. In Rome, I think I gave it a go because the Luxilons became very popular and natural gut was the choice for any attacking player. So I thought, like, I've seen some guys do it, but not many. I think Guga also started with all Luxilon, and also maybe Agassi. I wonder if he came before me or after me. I'm not sure anymore. And I realized, you know, I was able to put much more zip on the ball, and of course I wouldn't break as much string, you know. So for nostalgic, I still put in the what do you call them? The string savers. So I still put them in from the get-go. Yes, I still have the cork at the bottom to protect the gut, you know, even though nowadays you don't need them anymore because the bumper is so good these days. So I have the Lux on the crosses and on the gut on the mains, and I've been playing with that since 2002. I've strung probably at the time around 22, 23 kilos. And now I string around 26 and a half, 27. So because of the bigger racket head size, I've gone up in tension, of course.
One other thing I know we definitely wanted to mention is that this is such a specific spec, and sometimes these rackets come in at different tolerances. So the specs on our website actually are an average of many samples that we have tested. But to get super dialed in, you're really gonna wanna take advantage of the Tennis Warehouse matching service and really make sure that your rackets are matched to what you want them to be. So I know personally I like to be aware of exactly what my swing weight is every time I step on the court.
Yeah, I got to agree. I like my rackets totally dialed in. For me, its biggest real spec for me is the swing weight of the racket, even more than the initial pickup, which is the static weight of the racket. But how it's going to feel as it comes through my swing, that's the spec I'm really looking at. So I like to get my swing weights really dialed in. Booney, have you got a spec that you like to pay attention to?
Well, you guys are aware this is kind of at the upper rooftop of my spec range that I can handle efficiently over a period of time. So obviously I'm going to look for one that maybe has a lower swing weight. And like Michelle mentioned, that's something that you'd be able to afford through our matched racket program, our service that we give here. And that way you can get something that maybe could be a little higher or coming in a little lower than the average spec.
Let's get some final thoughts from Roger Federer.
It was nice speaking to you, and I hope people know that I miss all the fans out there and all the tennis lovers. And I hope some people will go and get the RF97 autograph at tenniswarehouse.com.